Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a fascinating deep dive ahead of us today into something, well, truly ambitious. Linkspreed. This isn't just about a new product, not really. It's about a company aiming to redefine the very fabric of the internet. They're striving to create nothing less than what they call an integrated internet ecosystem. Basically, yeah, the next generation of the web. Our mission today for you is to move beyond the marketing copy, give you a clear, concise, and importantly, a critically informed snapshot of Linkspreed's sprawling vision. We'll be breaking down their interconnected ventures, they call them startups, and exploring how they plan to build this social network-based internet. We're going to push past the surface, try to find those real aha moments, the strategy underneath, and maybe even the challenges they face, big ones.
Yeah, what immediately jumped out at me with Linkspreed is just the sheer audacity of it all, the scope. They position themselves as a mind map of innovation, which is an interesting way to put it. Each piece structured, quite deliberately it seems, around the different layers of the internet. Their stated aim, a free, decentralized, and independent social network-based internet, and a decentralized digital society. It's a grand ambition, no doubt. And as we go through it today, we'll explore how they're trying to achieve that across the whole spectrum, from the basic protocols and hardware all the way up to software and applications. It's, a truly holistic approach.
Okay, so let's start right where Linkspreed says its core is, Web4. They describe this as the application layer, their main focus, Med4. And at the heart of this Web4 is something called Web4 Nanas, social networks as a service. Now, here's the hook that really caught my attention. Get this. They claim you can build your own Facebook, fully customized for your community niche customers within 30 seconds during lunchtime. That's the pitch. They're calling this their core business model, currently in alpha release. That's an extraordinary claim, isn't it?
It is indeed. And it speaks to a very specific pain point in today's digital world, right? The magic behind Sanaz, as they present it anyway, is this fully cloud-based managed service. It uses AI for content moderation, and they stress it's data protection compliant, yet with full access to all data. This isn't just about speed, it's about offering ultimate freedom. That's the term they use. For a community builder or a business, being able to spin up a custom social network super fast, complete with AI agents handling moderation based on your rules, that fundamentally shifts things, shifts the burden and, importantly, the control away from those huge centralized platforms.
That's fascinating, this mix of ultimate freedom and AI help. But I have to ask, for our audience who know this space, how do they square data protection compliant with full access to all data? And what does ultimate freedom really mean in practice? Especially, thinking about the infrastructure, potential censorship if they're still hosting it.
That's exactly the critical question we need to unpack here.
Yeah. When they say data protection compliant, it likely means adhering to rules like GDPR or CCPA for the end users of these networks people create.
Okay.
Full access to all data then refers to the owner of that specific SAN-NOS instance. They get complete control over their community's data, which is a huge difference from, say, Facebook or X, where your data is really their data.
Right.
But the critical distinction is whose cloud it's on. If Linkspreed is the managed host, then your ultimate freedom is still, sort of within the bounds of their service agreement, their infrastructure. The real shift is empowering the community owner, definitely. But the decentralization part, it still has layers. It aims to put the community owner in control of their data. But freedom from a central authority, that's more of a spectrum, isn't it? It certainly redefines that relationship between community leaders and their data. It gives them control, insights, stuff that's impossible in the big platforms now.
That makes more sense. Empowering the owner, not necessarily total decentralization in every case. Okay, so this vision leads us to Web4 Delta. Linkspreed calls it their test kitchen for innovation. This is where they say they're exploring crazy technology, building the most addictive social network for testing, and creating clones of major platforms, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. It's in early access. What's the strategic play here? Are they just trying to build better versions of what exists, or is there something deeper behind these clones?
This is where it gets really interesting, strategically speaking. These clones, they're not just about copying. They serve several critical purposes for Linkspreed, I think. First, they're really effective test beds for their underlying SNOS tech. Makes sense, right? By trying to rebuild the complexity, the user engagement of something like YouTube or X, they're really stress testing their own infrastructure, scalability, features. Second, it lets them fine-tune their AI models for very specific social network uses.
It's like an internal sandbox for quick iteration, learning fast, without the pressure of a big public launch for that specific clone. So it's not about competing head-on with YouTube today with a clone. It's more about perfecting the tools that lets you build your own, maybe better YouTube tomorrow.
Okay. Sharpening the tools. And that leads right into Web4 AI. They're fine-tuning AI models for these specific uses. They mention models like LSW4 Arrow Roberta R4 hate speech, apparently built on Facebook's models, but with, they say, even more data. Now, for our listeners, just saying more data isn't enough, right? What specific innovations are they actually bringing to AI moderation, especially around, usual pitfalls, bias, context? And crucially, these models are open source, can be self-hosted, even learn from your community's database. What are the practical implications there?
This is a really crucial area.
Yeah.
The challenge with any big language model, especially for moderation, is bias. Always. Bias in the data, bias in interpretation. Linkspreed's approach, by building on existing strong models like Roberta, then fine-tuning, possibly with larger, maybe more diverse data sets, the aim is to reduce those biases, improve context understanding. That specific model name, LSW4 Arrow Roberta R4 hate speech, it really highlights their focus on a critical social issue. But the real innovation for users, that comes with the open source and self-hostable part. Imagine your community has unique slang, inside jokes, specific cultural stuff.
Yeah, standard AI misses that.
Exactly. A general AI often fails there. By letting the AI learn from your community's own database, its chats, its context, and letting you run it locally, you could potentially achieve a level of moderation, precision, relevance that's just impossible with some centralized black box AI. It means the AI adapts to your community, not the other way around. That offers potentially unprecedented control over your digital social space. However, it also means the community admin has to manage and secure that local AI. That's not a small task.
Right, so hyper-contextualized AI, that's a powerful differentiator, potentially. And speaking of local, customizable, what does this mean for developers or even just, curious individuals? Linkspreed's also pushing Web4 Open Source Lite at home. They say you can host a very, very small social network or Nano model on a Raspberry Pi with documentation, plus Web4 community editions for custom designs, plugins. This feels like a huge philosophical shift from the walled gardens we're all used to.
Absolutely. This initiative speaks directly to that decentralized and independent part of their vision. It really does. The ability to host a working social network on something as common and cheap as a Raspberry Pi, that's a potential game changer for digital sovereignty. It's not about hosting like a global rival to Facebook on a Pi. No, it's about creating truly private, local, niche communities where you have absolute control over the data, the rules, everything. For developers, this gives them an incredibly flexible sandbox. Build, experiment, create bespoke things for specific clients. And the community editions, they democratize it even more, encouraging this whole ecosystem of user-created add-ons and designs. It fundamentally challenges that idea that social infrastructure has to be hosted and controlled by a few giant companies. Of course, running it on a Pi. Well, you need to manage power, bandwidth, security, requires some technical know-how.
Sure.
It's not for everyone, maybe, but it empowers those who want that level of control.
That's a powerful idea, letting individuals really own their digital space. And looking broader, the whole Web4 ecosystem is pretty comprehensive. They've got their own search engine, search.linkspreed.com, a future search.web4.1 for communities, an alpha browser, even a Web4 OS on the roadmap. This really seems to reinforce that goal for an integrated, independent web experience. But what are the challenges here? Building these basic pieces from scratch, how do they plan to compete with the established giants in search and browsing?
Oh, the challenge is immense, huge. Let's be clear about that. Building a competitive search engine or a browser, that's a monumental task, needs vast resources, totally different expertise than social networks. However, Linkspreed's strategy here, it might not be about competing head-to-head globally right away. There's search.web4.1, specifically for communities, that suggests a more targeted approach, maybe. Imagine a search engine that indexes content within your federated Web4 social networks, giving you highly relevant results for your specific community without all the noise and algorithmic weirdness of general web search.
Interesting. Niche search.
Right. And the browser and OS, they're about completing the ecosystem, making sure users can access and interact with this new integrated internet without relying on external platforms that might be less private. It's about end-to-end control, integration, building their own stack ground up to keep it consistent with their core principles, independence, decentralization. But the adoption hurdle for those, It's going to be incredibly steep unless they offer really compelling integrated advantages. Massive hurdle.
Makes sense. Building a self-sufficient digital universe, basically.
Yeah.
Now let's pivot. Something that might seem disconnected at first, but is actually a key pillar. TRV. CRV. Linkspreed makes a bold commitment here. Unlimited and free software as a service, SaaS, for businesses and consumers. And they have this belief, they quote, "Good SaaS software is vital for businesses, therefore, in our opinion, a fundamental right."
That's a provocative statement. But how do they plan to sustain unlimited and free SaaS for businesses? What's the economic model? That sounds unsustainable. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It immediately raises eyebrows, especially in the SaaS market we know. Offering unlimited free enterprise software, ERP, CRM, project management. It sounds almost too good to be true. However, when we connect it back to the bigger picture, Linkspreed's whole integrated ecosystem, a potential strategy starts to emerge. Trive is split, right? Vertex for B2B SaaS, Origin for B2C. Vertex is releasing one free application every single month. Project management in July 2025, social media management planned for August, they say. The economic model probably isn't about direct money from the SaaS itself. Not primarily, anyway. Instead, it's likely about ecosystem lock-in, data control, maybe premium add-ons or support for bigger companies down the line. Think about it. If Linkspreed offers, say, a free CRM that's deeply linked to your Web4 social network, that becomes a really powerful incentive for businesses to move their whole digital presence onto the Linkspreed ecosystem. This integration means unified data, smoother workflows, more control over customer relationships right inside their own managed social network. So the free SaaS acts as a powerful hook, an acquisition tool, build a massive user base that then operates within their larger framework. It's a long game strategy. The value is in the integrated data, the network effect, not necessarily the individual software license fee.
I see. So less about traditional SaaS money, more about becoming the foundation for businesses. Attract them with free tools that plug right into their social presence. That's a very clever play. Ambitious, but clever. And for the entrepreneurial types, there's TriView. Lets you start your own SaaS business with their white label templates. Extends the ecosystem again. Okay, now let's shift gears pretty dramatically. Hardware. This is where Linkspreed really pushes for another level of independence. They explain their reason for jumping into hardware with WYNI DEX to become completely independent from what they call the rising power of AI. Introducing their W4 phones and W4 notebooks, currently in early access. How does owning the hardware achieve independence from AI? And what makes these devices different?
That independence from AI claim is quite provocative, yeah. But it refers to a specific kind of independence, I think. Avoiding reliance on centralized, sort of opaque AI systems and cloud infrastructure. That's the key. By controlling the hardware, Linkspreed can try to ensure sensitive data processing, especially for AI features like on-device moderation or personal assistance, happens right on your device, not sent off to some third-party cloud somewhere. That's a crucial difference for privacy, for autonomy.
Okay, on-device processing.
Exactly. And the key part of WYNIX seems to be what they call UISC, or UI4. It's a specialized SD card providing secure on-device OAuth and identity management. This isn't just any SD card. It's meant to be a unique identity system, hardware-based. With your W4 phone or notebook, the vision is you never ever need to log in across their whole ecosystem. Think of it like a physical, maybe tamper-resistant key holding your decentralized identity securely. This system could revolutionize identity management, a robust alternative to passwords, maybe even many software-based decentralized ID solutions. It could also cut down risks like phishing or compromise central login servers. But it does bring up the practical challenge of, securing and not losing a physical identity token.
Right. A hardware-backed on-device identity sounds super secure and also potentially a huge pain if you lose it. But beyond identity, they also see the W4 phone Gen 2 as a personal server, capable of hosting apps like Web4 Lite. What does that really mean? Turning your phone into a mini server, what does that unlock?
That's a really profound shift in how we think about personal computing, potentially. Imagine your smartphone not just as a client device accessing stuff elsewhere, but as a mini server that hosts your own personal cloud.
Right on the phone.
Right. This means you could host that Nano model social network we talked about directly on your phone. Your photos, documents, personal AI agents, they could live entirely on your device, under your control, not uploaded to Google Photos or iCloud or whatever. It's about repatriating your digital life, bringing it back from corporate clouds to your own hardware. The challenges. Obvious ones. Bandwidth, battery life, the technical side of managing a server on a phone.
Yeah, complexive.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the potential for truly private, decentralized personal data management is,
well, it's enormous.
That really does take the idea of personal digital sovereignty to a whole new level, and it doesn't stop there. Linkspreed's also exploring arcetic hardware, focuses on hardware on the edge. This is about decentralizing computing power, envisioning a network of Raspberry Pis to host larger social networks spread across the country. This sounds incredibly ambitious and complex. What are the technical, the logistical hurdles in building a distributed network like that on consumer hardware?
Yeah, this is where the rubber really meets the road for true decentralization at scale. Building a network of Raspberry Pis to host significant social networks. You're talking about solving immense challenges: reliability, uptime, security, data consistency. How do you manage data sync across thousands of devices that might be intermittently connected, owned by consumers? What about security holes on individual nodes?
Right.
How do you ensure performance, scalability, as demand fluctuates? This is a visionary idea for distributed computing, definitely. Moving away from centralized data centers towards more peer-to-peer networks for internet services. It aims to make the internet more resilient, less vulnerable to single points of failure. But it's still very much in the R&D frontier, heavy lifting required.
So connecting WINX and arcetic. They're both fundamentally about bringing the infrastructure closer to the user. That's the theme. Leveraging consumer devices for distributed processing, pushing towards digital independence by putting internet power quite literally in your pocket or on your home network. It's a massive undertaking. Now, let's go even deeper. The foundational layers, DEV.Unity protocols. Linkspreed describes this as re-architecting the internet's foundational layers. That sounds like challenging the very standards the internet is built on.
Indeed. This is where the ambition becomes, well, truly monumental. DEV.Unity protocols is working on things like UID, unique identity on device, which, as we touched on, aims for a new decentralized identity standard tied to that hardware. But they're also working on something called Project IPX, an effort to build an alternative to the traditional IP protocol. For our audience, the significance of trying to replace IP, well, can't really be overstated, can it? IP, Internet Protocol, is one of the absolute fundamental building blocks of the entire Internet, how data packets get routed.
The bedrock.
Exactly. The current IP architecture, especially IPv4, it has limits. Space, inherent security issues, a design that predates, mobile devices everywhere, strong privacy needs. Project IPX would presumably aim to fix these, maybe integrating new routing, stronger crypto at the network layer, or just fundamentally rethinking how nodes talk to each other. But the technical challenge of designing a protocol that can scale globally, and the even bigger challenge of getting widespread adoption, that's maybe the most formidable hurdle Linkspreed faces across its entire portfolio. It's not just engineering, it's convincing the whole internet ecosystem to change its fundamental language. It's huge.
A staggering undertaking. Yeah, many have tried. Limited success. Would be a true paradigm shift if they pulled it off, but now, prepare for a bit of a curveball. We're going to talk about SnackSnocks. Linkspreed presents this as a drone delivery service. My first thought is, what on earth does drone delivery have to do with building a new internet ecosystem? They even say themselves it has nothing really to do with the vision of a new internet. It's currently in development. What's going on there?
Yeah, this is where Linkspreed's definition of integrated ecosystem stretches, beyond the purely digital right into the physical world. While SnackSnocks might seem totally separate from Web4 or new internet protocols, a deeper look suggests it could align with a very long-term strategy: physical infrastructure, last-mile logistics. If Linkspreed aims to create an integrated digital society, well, that society still exists in the physical world, right?
True.
Think about the data a drone delivery service could collect. Real-time mapping, traffic patterns, delivery logistics, maybe even localized environmental data. This data could potentially feed into their AI models, provide insights for their Web4 OS, maybe even integrate with future versions of location-based social networks they might build. Who knows? Plus, if they succeed in creating a truly independent digital economy in their ecosystem, having their own physical delivery mechanism could be a big strategic advantage, bypassing existing logistics companies. So while it's not directly internet architecture, it speaks to a broader ambition, integrating various aspects of human interaction, commerce, into their self-contained universe. It's speculative, maybe, but it's an intriguing expansion of their ecosystem idea.
So it's about a complete ecosystem spanning digital and physical. That's a surprisingly holistic view, actually. Okay, let's try and tie all these pieces together then. These disparate startups, social networks, SaaS, hardware, protocols, even drones, what really unites them? The ultimate vision, they tell us, is a super app, described as a single unified application that integrates the entire Web4 ecosystem, AI, third-party services, and mini apps.
Right? This super app is basically the grand unifying theory behind Linkspreed. The core idea is that all these seemingly separate startups are actually designed to be deeply connected between each other at a fundamental architectural level. It's not just a random collection of apps. It's meant to be a seamless, secure, intuitive experience, where your decentralized identity from your WYNX device flows effortlessly through your custom Web4 social networks into your free Trive SaaS apps, maybe even coordinates a Snacks Knox drone delivery, all from one interface.
One entry point.
Exactly. The goal is to avoid the fragmentation we see today, where you're juggling dozens of unrelated apps. Instead, everything works together, designed from the ground up, supposedly to uphold their principles, data control, user empowerment. And the super app is intended to be built for and by the community. That suggests a platform where users, developers can contribute many apps, features, further enhancing its integrated utility. The challenge, of course, is making sure it doesn't just become another walled garden, even if it has a more user-centric philosophy baked in. That's always the tension.
So what does this all mean for you listening in? We've journeyed through Linkspreed's pretty ambitious ecosystem, from being able to potentially build your own social network on a Raspberry Pi, to free enterprise software that integrates with your digital community, to phones that act as your personal server and identity hub, and even a peek into rethinking fundamental internet protocols and, yes, drone delivery. It's a vision that really aims to touch every layer of our digital lives, maybe even physical ones, seeking to reshape the internet into something truly integrated and, ideally, user-controlled.
And this raises, I think, an important question for you to consider as you navigate our increasingly digital world. Linkspreed's audacious approach, integrating every single layer of protocols, hardware, SaaS, social networks, all with this emphasis on decentralized identity and user control. It paints a vivid, compelling picture of a potential future internet. What could be the most significant impact on your digital life if this vision of this truly integrated internet ecosystem, where you have unprecedented control over your data and infrastructure? What if that actually becomes a reality? And more personally, how much control are you willing to take over your own digital infrastructure? What are the trade-offs you foresee in that kind of decentralized future? Something to think about.